Hi, my name is Joel. In this episode of Unplugged, I talk to Rasmus Hougaard. Rasmus is the founder and managing director of Potential Project. With hundreds of coaches in 30 countries, Potential Project delivers leadership and mindfulness programs to many of the Fortune 500 companies. Their programs improve results, well-being, and innovation. Rasmus and I talk about many things, including the power of attention, his own daily practice, and the 3 qualities of a successful leader. So I was wondering, how did you came up with the idea to start a Potential Project?
So I have a long background in contemplative practices. When I was very young, I went to Asia and to Nepal, met some great meditation masters that taught me how to manage my own mind. And
How old were you back then?
I was 17 when I started, yeah. And then
How come you started that early?
because I felt a sense of emptiness in the Western approach to life, basically. And so I took off, and then I came back and kept up the practices and kept going on retreats. But I also became a bit conventional. I did my university degree. I became a researcher in organization development. I ended up in the corporate world. And after some years, I was with the Sony Corporation, and I started to look around the offices and seeing that people were, first of all, not enjoying their work. You know, they would tick in at whatever time in the morning and leave in the afternoon. They would be stressed out and they wouldn't be very effective. They were not very focused. I could just see that they were incredibly distracted, incredibly stressed, and just not enjoying their work. And I thought, that's such an incredible waste of human potential. And I started to look back at what I was doing and why I was enjoying my work, and that was definitely because I had the practice that helped me to have a more clear, calm, and focused mind. I never felt stressed. I just felt that I was constantly on doing the right things, and I really enjoyed it. So that gave me the inspiration. I thought, hey, if I can do these things and that changes my life and my performance drastically, other people should have that too. It doesn't seem fair that I keep it for myself. So that's when I came up with the idea, hey, let's try and scale this.
So when did you start out?
That was a bad timing. That was in 2008. As you can imagine, just before the financial crisis. The first years were a bit tough. In 2008, I had my first presentation, which was something I was really looking forward to. I had a full company that was pulling their leadership team out for the day, and I had really prepared well. I was just absolutely ready, and came there, and the whole morning I put them through meditation practices and told them about amazing yogis from the Himalayas that had inspired me a lot. And there was a lunch break, and after lunch they didn't come back. And I can laugh at it now. Obviously, back then it was quite painful because I realized that my approach didn't work. It really didn't work. If you want to integrate something that's perceived as personal, soft, fluffy, Eastern, all this stuff, with the hardcore day-to-day reality of being a leader in a business, you need to make a seamless integration that people can see there's a benefit from the moment they start these practices. That took about 3 years to bring together researchers and business leaders and mind training masters to really find a format that worked well. So tough start, but fun.
And after those 3 years, it started resonating with the market.
Yeah, so after those 3 years, we did a test where we brought in media and researchers to a big European insurance company, and we basically just put it all out there. Now we're putting everything on one horse, and fortunately it worked really well. Very, very impressive results that the researchers had never seen before in any kind of corporate intervention, and the media started to write about it, and within a few years we were in 10 countries, and now we're in 30 countries with working for like 600 global companies. So it's a very, very quick, rapid expansion.
So when you look at all those people you've teach mindfulness within all those companies, what changes within a company when they start doing it?
There are a few things that change. Let's first talk about the individual level and then the cultural level. The first is people get more calm, and when they get more calm, they get more focused. And when they get more calm and focused, they have a sense of overview so they're better able to prioritize what's right. What they also find is a bigger sense, and I know that sounds fluffy and a little bit flaky, but they find a sense of inner peace. And when you find peace with yourself, you start to have more peace with others. And that has a massive impact on the culture. So what the organizations are seeing at large is people are kinder, people are more collaborative, collaboration goes more smoothly, and people are generally more focused on the right things, not just doing a lot of things, and that basically makes people more higher performing, more productive.
Is it necessary that the leadership team is on board of this as well, or not? What is your experience?
It is. If the leadership team is not on board, people in the organization will not feel that it is okay to sit quiet for any moment in the day and practice mindfulness, as an example. But also, what we work a lot with is work practices. So something like multitasking, which researchers have found over the past 10 years is just a fundamental thing to do for our performance, our productivity, our well-being. That is something that all people think is still a good thing. So if there is not a buy-in from the top of the organization, hey, we got to stop multitasking and be more focused at what we do, then people will keep multitasking. So it's very important that the top is at least bought into the concepts of what you're doing, so that the culture can actually allow to change.
Do you see it growing throughout time in the last few years, that more and more leaders are into doing this? What do you see changing? What's happening?
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, when we started, it was a hard sell. Like, companies did not see the benefit in this, and senior leaders certainly not. But nowadays, it's made headlines in all newspapers, in all TV. It's everywhere. So everybody talks about it, and that has an impact on the corporate world as well. So my estimate is, at least in America and Europe, probably 30% of all CEOs are meditating. Thank you. On a daily basis. 30%. So around 30%. So it's a very significant impact it has had on leadership in the Western world, foremost.
It's still growing, you think?
It's definitely still growing. I would say it will probably keep growing as long as we are in an attention deficit trait crisis, which is what we are. People are, like, on average, 47% of the time, people are really not paying attention to whatever they're doing. And that has obviously a massive effect on the bottom line. As long as we have that crisis, attentional crisis, the rise of mindfulness will keep happening, I think, because it is a direct antidote to our inability of paying attention.
What do you see is happening in society because of that crisis?
The societal crisis, or impacts of this crisis, is staggering. We know that with the introduction of technology, first of all, our attention span has dropped significantly, but we also know that with that, there is a much higher rate of depression, much higher rate of anxiety, and much higher rate of even suicide. So when we're not paying attention to what we're doing because we're constantly distracting ourselves, we're never really present, and that has an impact on our well-being, and that has an impact on how people live their lives. So it's very sad what we're seeing nowadays.
I stopped eating sugar altogether last January. Like, okay, for me it was
I did that in January as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
For me, it was the next step in eating more healthy. I'm not a healthy eater by myself.
Okay.
So,
but sugar is a good thing to cut out.
Yeah. It gives more clarity, of course, and
yes, it does.
Your state deepens when you meditate.
Yeah.
Why did you cut with sugar?
Because it had a negative impact on my stomach, I could feel, and it has a negative impact on my mind. I can just feel my mind getting more hazy and foggy when I eat sugar.
It's amazing to see for me how more and more people stop with the alcohol and start drinking less coffee and really pay attention to being really healthy. And they understand how it affects their mind, of course.
And you know that when even in the Netherlands people stop eating as much sugar, drinking so much beer, and drinking coffee, then something's
happening. But do you teach that as well, to tell companies how they can live a healthier life?
That is a part of our curriculum, but not for all clients. Some clients are asking for that, and then we bring that in, but always from a, let's say, a work and a performance perspective.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a performance aspect of having sugar and going into the blood sugar roller coaster, where we're basically alternating between being like basically stressed out because of too much sugar and being too low on sugar, which is very, very bad for performance. And the same with coffee for that matter, and how much we eat in general.
Yeah. What kind of leaders or companies do you see that are, in your opinion, really front runners when it comes to creating a more conscious organization?
So I would say it's generally leaders that are under significant pressure, and they have tried to look for all the different apps and all the time management tools and found out that it's still not enough. And what we see is they take to the last resort, which is the main driver of their actions, which is the mind. So it's the ones that are really under pressure that generally take to it. If we look at geography, it has definitely been predominantly in the US, and then in Europe, and in Australia, and then Asia. And if we look at the industries, it's definitely been IT and tech that has been the main front runners in this. Obviously from Silicon Valley to other tech hubs around the world. And then professional services and finance, those are the bigger industries where CEOs and senior leaders are taken to the practice.
Do you have specific leaders that you say, okay, those are really doing an effort and they're really making steps with their organization?
I think there are a lot of great role models in CEOs that are totally transforming their organizations. One of the good ones is Jeff Wayne from LinkedIn, who took the position about 10 years ago, and he had come from a senior position in Yahoo, where he was known to be just a pretty tough leader. And he had realized that didn't deliver the results that he had hoped for, and he had been contemplating a lot how he could do that differently. And he made compassion and mindfulness his two main leadership mantras. And basically nowadays, everything in LinkedIn that has to do with people is wrapped around those concepts. So the way they recruit people, the way they hire, the way they train, the way they develop leaders, are all focused around how do they become better people that take better care of each other and clients. And whether that's why LinkedIn has a massive success, that's still to be seen. But he's a good example. I think Satya Nadella, the new CEO, or not so new anymore, of Microsoft, is also a good example of a new generation of CEOs that is looking more at people rather than first business. And I think those are generally the types that start to pick this up and transform their cultures.
Are you hopeful for the future of leadership and humanity in that sense?
Those are two different questions, humanity and leadership. Let's talk about leadership first. If I'm hopeful about leadership in the future, I'm very hopeful about leadership in the future, for the reason that what we have seen we did a 3-year research with Harvard Business Review, where we basically assessed around 35,000 leaders and interviewed 250 C-suite executives. What we found is that leadership and leaders' focus is changing a lot these years. We used to live in what you would call an empty stomach paradigm, where people really needed a job to get their paychecks so they could fill their stomachs. We're not in that situation anymore. People are looking for a great work experience nowadays, and if they don't find that at whatever job they have, they're going to go and look somewhere else. So big companies and companies in general that want to have good employees that are delivering the results they need to have good cultures and they need to have good leaders. If they don't have that, what our research showed was they're just going to lose the best talent, and they'll lose the war on talent, and therefore basically lose out in the end. So from that perspective, I'm very hopeful about leadership.
And humanity?
Humanity is a big question. Am I hopeful about humanity? You know, I am deeply concerned about the whole climate crisis and the impact that will have on humanity and the impact it will have on leaders. Because we're seeing that within 10 to 15 years, the costs of repairing what is going to be damaged by climates is way higher than the cost that we know now. That means all welfare is going to go down. There's going to be a shortage of food and water, and what people do when their neighbor has food and they don't have it themselves. So yeah, I'm pretty concerned about humanity because of what we're doing to the planet.
So that's not really helpful then?
I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. But I see there are some pretty massive challenges, and if we don't start to tackle them like seriously now, things are gonna go pretty bad.
You talk about the three qualities of leadership, of successful leadership.
Right.
Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Yeah. So as part of our study with Harvard, we basically went out and spent 3 years finding out what are the most important mental qualities for leaders in the 21st century to create basically an engaged workforce and ultimately better results for the business. The first one that was very clear was mindful, simply because if leaders are not mindful, first of all, they can't be effective because they're constantly distracted. Secondly, if they're not mindful, they don't have self-awareness. They're not aware of their own biases, and they will act in ways that are basically against what they're trying to do. And thirdly, if you're not mindful with the people you're leading, if you're basically checking your phone while someone is asking for your attention, they will know you don't care, and they will not be engaged. They will simply lose trust. They will lose engagement. So mindfulness is like the foundation of good leadership in this very distracted age. The second quality that we found was leaders need to be selfless. Selflessness meaning not looking at your own egoistic drivers and being driven by those, which has been let's say a big thing in leadership for many years. But what we see emerging is a new kind of leader that is looking at the bigger perspective, looking at the greater good, looking at developing a team and putting the team on the stage rather than taking the praise, giving the praise and taking the blame. That is the other hallmark. And the third one is compassion, the intention to be genuine service for other people's happiness and well-being. If you have a leader that has compassion for you, you will know that that leader has your back if you screw up, and that makes you more innovative, more courageous, and better at your job. So mindfulness, selflessness, and compassion are the three most critical skills for leaders in the 21st century.
And if leaders want to develop these skills, where could they start? Where should they start?
So if you want to develop these skills, I think first of all, go to one of your events or your coming conferences. I think that's a good place to start. And of course, there are other good places to do that.
Like Potential Project.
Like, can definitely come and talk to us as well. I would say for leaders to pick up a daily mindfulness practice is a good starting point. It's something you can do by downloading any free app on mindfulness, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. Pick that up, get started with that, and that will start to develop the qualities of self-awareness, of better focus, of more presence. In some cases, it can help you to become more selfless and more compassionate. Otherwise, there are also good apps to develop those kind of things, and books, of course.
How does it work for you? Because you lead a company yourself with hundreds of employees. You travel the world all the time. How do you stay in a centered state? What does your practice look like?
Right. So for me, in traveling, if not every day, at least every other day on a plane, spending a lot of time with clients, having meetings in all time zones, having an inbox that never stands still, there's no doubt that my meditation practice, my mindfulness practice is what keeps me grounded and focused and keeps me in touch with what is important for me and for the organization, so I can actually make the right choices on a day-to-day basis. So I would say my main thing is taking care of my mind, making sure that my mind is clear, calm, and focused at as much of the time as possible.
And you have regular moments in the day that you do a practice, or is it some sort of ongoing?
It's the main practice for me is in the morning when I wake up. I sit up right away, and then I sit for between 30 and 40 minutes in mindfulness practice, and that kind of builds an amazing foundation for being calm, clear, and focused throughout the day. So that's the main thing. And then I do a lot of micro practices. So when I walk here from the station, I basically walk and breathe and just take my time to reload and be ready for this conversation. When I'm moving from here to a CEO that I'm meeting just after this, I will not pick up the phone, I'll not check my text messages, but to take all those small breaks that are to just tune in with yourself and just be present for a moment. And then I do a practice of 10-15 minutes in the evening. So those three things is what keeps me going.
So how has doing these practices changed your life or your experience of life?
Those are two different questions that are equally interesting. I think it has changed my life in the way that over the years, even though an immense pressure has increased on my shoulders because of running a global organization, that I've been able to keep managing that pressure. So that I think is a key thing. It has also helped strengthen my self-awareness of what's good for me, what's not good for me. So as we talked about, sugar is something I don't do because I can feel it's actually damaging my mind. But what it's doing on my view on life is a whole different thing. It is definitely making me more optimistic, more positive. It helps me to see opportunities and possibilities in the world rather than being limited by a fight and flight response and constantly like reacting to things. So I think the practice helps me to be better at living a life that is positive and happy.
What do you feel is your next step in your own development as a leader?
I think I'm struggling with the same challenge that most CEOs and most very senior leaders are, which is we get promoted because we're really good at doing stuff and running fast. And at some point, what we do is not important anymore. It is how we do it. Because we're managing teams that have way bigger impact than we do ourselves. So having let's say 10% focus on strategy, having a 5% focus on just doing the things, small things that need to be done. I think having an 85% focus on leading people, enabling people, building people, developing people, so that there's a good succession when one is leaving, but also so that the organization can really grow and thrive through good people. That is my challenge, and I think in the work I do with CEOs, that is the challenge of most people, because we're all compelled to do stuff because we think that's going to help ourselves and the organization. We need to step back. I need to step back more.
In 20, 30 years from now, then maybe you're at the end of your creational part of life. Maybe it will be 50 or 60 because, of course, you meditate, you do your mindfulness practice, so you might get old very healthy. But in 20, 30 years from now, when would you be really happy with what you've accomplished? Because you've accomplished a lot already, of course, but there's always a next level. What would it be?
So what will make me happy looking back at what I've done is two things. One is that our own organization is effective and optimized, but more so that it is harmonious, that people have a very strong sense of compassion, a very strong sense of being present with each other. If we miss that, then we have completely sold out on everything that we're trying to do. So that is my most important thing, that internally we are a good company to work for, we're a good company to be a part of our tribe. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we have had an impact on enough people out there that has had a tipping point effect or a critical mass effect in many organizations, that those organizations have changed their cultures to be more mindful and compassionate. And that has a ripple effect into their families and communities. And the whole mission of Potential Project is very simply to co-create a more peaceful and compassionate world. Because the future is looking slightly bleak with climate change, and what will be required is people's calmness, focus, and care for each other when things start to get a little bit more shaky than they are now. So that is what I hope will have happened, that we will have had a massive impact on a number of million people that then can be agents for better ship in the world.
You You've written 2 books now. What is there a next one coming up?
Yes, but I can't talk about that.
You can't talk about it? Okay. Do you like the writing process? It's of course a team process, I think, but
the writing process of a book is pretty hard, I think, when you're like most people trying to live a life where there's a lot of activity and a lot of details you need to always hold in mind, and then you're trying to write a book which is holding a very big picture of a big philosophy, a framework. The combination of that big picture and all the nitty-gritty details is 2 very different mindsets. I personally find that difficult, and the way I've written other books is by shutting off emails and meetings and so on for a number of days in a row and just writing and then going back to life.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy writing books. It's hard.
Yeah. I wrote a book, but I experienced the same thing. And for me, I have to really shut off for a week, I think, to really sink into it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see differences across different continents in how open leaders and organizations are to dive into mindfulness?
Yes, there are definitely regional differences in that. Regional and industry differences. And the US were definitely the ones that were first to pick up the whole mindfulness and leadership movement. And they're going pretty strong. And they're also challenged by the American culture, which is slightly more harsh and demanding than in most other places of the world. So that's the challenge they have, but they're pretty good at picking up something like mindfulness. In Europe, they're also good. In Australia, they're also great. Asia, a little slower.
How come? Because Asia is where it was born in a way.
Yes, yeah. So the whole idea of meditation and contemplative practices, mindfulness was born in Asia, obviously. And I think in the recent 2 generations, they've completely let go of that, unfortunately. So every time I'm in Asia and talk about these things, people will be sitting and they'll say things like, what you're talking about now is what my grandfather used to teach me. And I completely forgot about it.
Really?
So it's like been lost for a few generations now. But the good thing is it's almost in their DNA, so they pick it up very quickly.
Yeah, and for Westerners, that's something else. They have to go do more effort, I think, to also get the discipline to make it a daily practice. Do you see differences in generations in general? And if people are open to it or pick it up?
Yeah. So the generation that used to be the ones that really picked it up most easily were the generation between 35 and 50-ish. The ones that were older, they were a little bit skeptic, and the one that were younger were also a bit more skeptic. But over the past few years, with the insane increase in use of technology and social media, the younger generations are also much more open to it and bring it into their lives because they can see that they're out of control, they're not managing their lives, they're not getting good sleep because of the devices. So I would say mindfulness is really booming for the younger generations right now.
Yeah. And now myself, currently I'm experimenting with combining meditation with electronic music and techno. So we're doing events with these for like the 20, 30-year-old people. So it's not the pure mindfulness or meditation, it's some sort of crossover.
Right.
And people love it. Like they're so open to being more in the here and now, and then using the music and make life itself a meditation.
And music really helps you to be centered with yourself.
You use music yourself?
Well, I'm a musician, or used to be. I can't call myself a musician anymore. I played the drums for many years. I still do. And like playing a concert is the best way of getting absolutely absorbed in the moment, because you literally can't miss a beat, because then you'll screw up.
And do you still play once in a while?
I do play. Yeah, my 2 sons and my daughter are all playing, so we do a bit of jamming at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like a family band.
Yes.
That's cool. And you are the drummer then?
I'm the drummer, yeah.
What kind of songs do you do?
We do mostly blues, a little bit jazzy, and rock music.
And does your family live in New York or in Denmark?
They live in Copenhagen, but they
Okay.
also come to New York often.
Yeah, okay. And do your kids do mindfulness?
They do it in periods. So when I'm sitting in the morning, I never know who will show up. Right now, the past few months, it's been one of my sons that has been more than usually busy with because he's involved in the climate movement, and that's taking a lot of his time. So he feels he needs to practice. So he's coming, sitting with me in the morning. My daughter's doing it. My other son is doing it less regular.
How do you look at this? Can you teach mindfulness to children at a young age, or do they have to ask for it themselves? How does that work?
You can definitely teach it to young kids, and it's very helpful for them. I think it's probably one of the most important gifts that we can give to our kids, because they are growing up in a world that is unbelievably saturated with stuff and distractions coming from technology mainly. So helping your kids to be centered and being, resting in themselves is really important. And you can do that from when they're like 2 or 3 years. Then you, of course, do it in a different way than what adults do nowadays. So a good thing to do with kids when they're small is just to, when they're going to bed, put a teddy bear on their belly and they're lying on their back, and you basically ask them to count every time it's going up and down.
Oh, really?
So it's a very simple, and they find that amusing and funny, and you're with them holding their hand or just touching their head. And do that for a few minutes and they will completely calm down. It's very simple. And so when you bring this to kids, be creative about what's motivating for them. And then let their motivators drive the process rather than your ideas about what it should be.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Have you ever wondered if you should, with potential projects, should focus on schools as well, for example?
So when I started Potential Project, the idea just before that was, if we want to look at and safeguard the future, we need to work with kids, of course. But there are so many organizations that are doing that, and they can't do it very well because they don't have the funds. So Potential Project decided instead to focus on the corporates, because they're not only can we have a positive impact for people and therefore their families, but also we can actually make profits that we can then donate to organizations that bring this to schools, to kids, to prisons, to hospitals, and so on.
Yeah.
So we have chosen not to go there, but only to focus on one thing, so we can do that well, and then help that other movement by generating profits for that.
If you could give one advice to a leader of an organization, what would it be?
If I could give one advice to any leader, I would give two. The first one, very, very simple. Our research showed that if you want to have a good career, if you want to progress in ranks in your organization, the main thing that you need to focus on is your focus. Our study basically found that the more focused people are, the faster and the higher they'll raise in ranks in your organization. So don't ever compromise your focus, and that means stop multitasking, stop checking your phone all the time, stop being on emails all the time. When you're with people, be with people, do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So focus is like at the core of performance and people engagement. So that would be the first advice. Never compromise focus. The second one, which was surprising in our study, was never compromise sleep. Because there's a widespread myth that if you want to raise in ranks, you got to sacrifice somewhere, and the place that people sacrifice is sleep. So do long days, put the kids to bed, and then keep working, and then get up at 5 o'clock again. But our research, very interesting, found that CEOs and C-suite executives are sleeping an average of 7.3 hours a night, which is significantly more than all the levels below there. In the beginning, we thought this is probably because they have a chauffeur, they have a lot of secretaries, basically people are taking care of their lives. But looking at their schedules, that's just not the case. I mean, of course, they have people taking care of them, but they have like back-to-back all day. It's tough. What we found was they had generally had the discipline of sleeping enough every night throughout their career, whereby they were able to show up every day, be focused, be present, be effective at what they needed to do. So I would say the one advice to leaders is focus and sleep.
Yeah, this is some really wise advice. And the interesting thing is that I think most people don't know this. So the way you talk about focus, hardly anyone talks about this or is aware of this. And the sleep thing is the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Pretty basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's like a big secret.
It almost is. And one other thing that is surprising me in spending a lot of time with C-suite executives, one would think that these people have gotten to where they are because they're incredibly smart, and they're incredibly high performing, and they're incredibly good at managing their time. But most executives have lost their sense of what is important right now, and they're just doing stuff. They're just in a complete action addiction mode where they're just doing stuff all the time. When we asked C-suite executives how many of them actually took time every day to reflect and do focused work, very few of them did. Which is surprising, because that is the most important thing as an executive, is to reflect and be focused so that you can strategize, innovate, and see the future, and not just do what you did yesterday. And it is shocking to see how many executives are just not doing that. The potential that is wasted is unbelievable.